front of you? Hand out. Everybody? Hand out. Good, good, good. I'm going to talk about a lot of things today. The title is How We Get Literate and How We Get Smart, and it's through compelling reading and problem solving. We're extending our research from language acquisition into problem solving in general. The parallel is not exact, but it's very, very close. And I'm going to begin by telling you about some case histories that will set up the discussion. First of all, famous people who've done very well in life, but who've had very little schooling, and sometimes no schooling at all. I'm beginning with my favorite case. Have you ever heard of Michael Faraday? How many of you know this name? Science students know about Michael Faraday, one of the great chemists of all time, who also worked in physics. He was one of Einstein's heroes. His work led to Maxwell's equations, and Einstein had Maxwell and Faraday's pictures on his wall. That's how good he was. He lived several hundred years ago in London, grew up in very high poverty. When he was 10 years old, he had to drop out of school and had to take a job as an apprentice to a neighborhood bookbinder. Not only was this guy a bookbinder, but he also had a small bookstore. And this man changed the world. We owe this bookbinder a great deal. When he said to Michael, 10-year-old boy, he said, come in, help me with the books, putting them together, pasting them, gluing them. But look at all these books around. Take some time off. Read them. Enjoy yourself. Take a few hours every day. I don't mind. You should really do this. For the next 10 years, Michael Faraday did pleasure reading. He probably, because it was bookbinding and a bookstore, he probably had more access to books than anyone in London at the time. This was several hundred years ago. After all this reading, fiction, non-fiction, everything he could find, he decided he wanted to become a chemist. He wanted to become a scientist. He found a great chemist in London, became his apprentice. At age 26, Michael Faraday published his first original paper. He basically joined the fields of physics and chemistry. He discovered the first principles of electromagnetism and changed the world. Michael Faraday never studied. Got that? Michael Faraday never took a test. He knew more about physics and chemistry than anyone in the world and did brilliant research that we profit from today. Number 2, Thomas Edison, the man who, of thousands of patents, one of the most productive and original applied scientists who ever lived. Thomas Edison dropped out of school when he was 8 years old. Really. He was driving his teachers crazy, and they sent him home. He said, I don't want to do this anymore, I can't stand it. His mom taught him how to read, and after that he was on his own. He took a job as a paperboy on a train between, I think, New York and New Haven, Connecticut, several hours. And on the train he would sell newspapers, and in the afternoon he'd sell candies and coffee and ice cream and all these things. He had a layover of 6 hours in New Haven. Nothing to do. Across the street of the train station was a library. He spent all the time in the library. He read and read and read. Never took a test. Never studied. One of the great geniuses. Abraham Lincoln, former President of the United States. Oh, where are you now, Abraham? I'm sorry, I didn't vote for Trump. I worry about this all the time. Anyway, so embarrassing. Anyway, Abraham Lincoln, if I've looked at what his biographers have said about him, and he grew up in a humble, rural background. If you took all his schooling together and totaled it up, he had about the equivalent of 1 year of school. That's all. He had access to books. He found books. He borrowed books. He became a dedicated reader, became an insightful, brilliant political scientist, and a wonderful speaker and writer. It came from reading and reading about things that he was interested in. Okay, then we have cases of people who are highly successful who went to school and got through it, but they weren't very good at it. George Orwell, the guy who wrote 1984, etc. George Orwell's biographers, I came across this, said, yeah, I remember, one of his teachers said, I remember he was in school, he was lazy. He never read the assigned reading. He just barely slipped through. But when you look at what he read, he had a very extensive, impressive reading list of things he read on his own. We're going to see this pattern again and again. Albert Einstein's quite well known for not being a good student. I want to put in a commercial message for a biography of Einstein's that I have a personal connection to. If you want to read a good book about Albert Einstein, Hans Ohanian, O-H-A-N-I-A-N, called Einstein's Errors. His wife, not Einstein's wife, Ohanian's wife, is Susan Ohanian, who's a very good colleague of mine, and we've had a very rich virtual relationship over the last 30 years, going back and forth, and she has been the conscience of the American teacher. And her husband, Hans, turns out to be this theoretical physicist. The connection goes very deep. My son, the mathematician, has several of Ohanian's books. It's all coincidental, right? Anyway, my comment about Ohanian's book was that Einstein made a lot of mistakes, went back and corrected them, but this was the creative process. This is what you go through. Einstein was not a good student. He was bored with the classes. He was a voracious reader in physics in areas he was interested in, which weren't always the areas that the professors were interested in. You see the pattern. Isaac Newton, also covered in Hans Ohanian's book, exactly the same way. A lazy student, so it seemed, when you look hard, a very good student at what he thought was interesting. Well, we do have people who seem to break the mold, who are very good students, and were also highly successful and very impressive. So being good at school is not forbidden. Okay, this is not an excuse for you not to go to class and don't do it.